Now I have to do it again. Oh, welcome to Campfire Curmudgeon. My name is Heidi Schilling. Nicholas Jones! Welcome to Campfire Curmudgeon. My name is Heidi Schilling, and with me is...
Nicholas Jones.
Yay!
Yay!
What are we talking about today, Nicholas?
Well, we're on a last name basis now, so we are talking about love.
Love. And saucers?
Saucers?
Yeah, love and saucers.
Like coffee and tea saucers?
No, not those kind.
Flying saucers.
Those kind.
And oil painting.
I guess it's oil painting. They're pretty cool, whatever they are. We're talking about Love and Saucers. This was a documentary that was released, I believe it was last year.
Uh-huh.
And the object of this documentary is David Huggins.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a man who was, I believe he was 72 at the time.
74-year-old.
Oh, 74.
I'm going off of the YouTube page, which is actually from the Love and Saucers production
There you go.
company.
That's probably more accurate than my memory.
And they published it December 2017, so when we say a year ago, we pretty much mean like
so not
within
really.
a few months.
Actually, a few months ago.
Uh-huh.
And we recently watched that. That was a lot of fun.
We had a screening of that last night.
We did.
This movie, although I don't think it technically fits the runtime for a feature film.
Yeah, it did seem pretty short.
It was an hour 5 minutes.
Hour 5 minutes.
To be a movie, I think you need to be about 74, 76 minutes.
It was a fun little documentary,
Mm-hmm.
and tell everybody what that was about, Nicholas.
Well, 74-year-old David Huggins lives a quiet, solitary life in Hoboken, New Jersey. He spends his days painting landscapes and still lives, tidying up the house, and working part-time in a local deli.
Basically, he's just an adorable old man who...
With a talent for art.
He has talent for art, and his paintings tend to be of extraterrestrials. And he is usually featured in these paintings. Tell us about that, Nicholas. What are these paintings of?
Well, they're
blushing.
They're otherworldly beings, including losing his virginity to an extraterrestrial woman at 17 in Georgia.
So that's his story. Basically, this man, he has had experiences with extraterrestrials since he was very young. He originally did not remember these experiences until he was reading a book. I don't remember what book he was reading, but they were describing an extraterrestrial being.
It's featured in the movie, but
yes, watch the movie. It's very good, actually. I highly recommend it. But he was reading this book, and all of his memories came flooding back. And so then he had all these memories of, I think he said from the time he was about, 8? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, well, it was like pre-adolescence.
He remembers being very young and having experiences with extraterrestrials. And then when he was 17, he lost his virginity to a female extraterrestrial that he has seen since he was a child and continues to see.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls her Crescent. I don't think she ever gives him her name. They don't seem to really talk much, but he does refer to her as his girlfriend. And many of these experiences he has with Crescent are sexual experiences.
Mm-hmm.
He says he has had numerous children with her. And, he paints these. That's kind of his coping mechanism for how he deals with these experiences. He says that he was having kind of a hard time with it, and they were wiping his memory, but once he began remembering, they allowed him to paint. Once they realized that they couldn't keep wiping him, because he once he read that book, it was like It unlocked something, and he couldn't forget. He wouldn't always necessarily remember exactly what happened every time. He'd remember bits and pieces, but they allowed him to paint. So they're really good, actually. It's very funny. Describe Crescent. How does he paint her?
He paints her as she has like a bob haircut and black hair.
It's a little longer than a bob.
With bangs, and it's kind of like an Asian woman or Yoko Ono in whiteface, like with pancake makeup and mime makeup.
Sort of. It's really interesting because
it's very specific.
It's like a little bit like Kiss paint, kind of, because her face is very white, and at first a lot of the pictures that we saw of his paintings, she was wearing like this long blue robe type dress that covers her arms, her whole body, and then once we see all these naked pictures of her, only her face is white.
Right. It's like
so
the white tone of it ends at the neck, and at that point she becomes like a very voluptuous, curvy, large breasted woman.
That's what I thought was
an hourglass figure, yeah.
So interesting. Her eyes kind of look like the typical gray, like the big almond black eyes, but then
They're very
they're
iridescent
blue in the
and
middle.
blue, yeah.
Yeah, only in the middle.
Mhm.
So it's like the outside of the eye. Is it makeup? Is it part of the eye? Is it
Mhm.
just coloring on her face? He doesn't really get too much into that, but it's very interesting that he drew not just Crescent, he drew other women, and he
Mhm.
drew them in various states of undress, and they also have the same white face that ends right at the neck, and their bodies are tan.
Yes.
So I was joking saying that because they wear the outfits that cover their whole body, it's like they reverse tan, like they're already tan, and when they go out in their sun, they turn pale. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it's that it burns the top layer of their skin and it's like that fine ash.
There you go. So what did you think of this movie, Nicholas?
I thought it was really well made. I thought the subject, a director like this, or basically the filmmakers, you could have taken the step of mocking your subject.
Yes.
You very easily went into that, but
it wasn't.
it's very sincere.
Yeah,
and
it didn't seem
It's
exploitive.
very earnest as well. I think and I remember remarking as we watched the film, he's a very talented painter. It's not like, I mean, his eye for detail is enough where you can kind of visualize, you can see his imagination.
He has a very stylistic way of painting. I actually like it. It's pretty cool.
It's impressionistic the way Monet
a little bit, yeah.
did, but instead of like obsessing with flowers and water, it's his experiences with the extraterrestrial.
I would definitely have one of his paintings on my wall.
Yeah, and I think, like, I remember saying as we were watching it, I'm like, if this guy didn't have these paintings, there wouldn't be a documentary.
Actually, that's how the documentary got made.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I read this somewhere, if I heard it. I've heard interviews he's done with other individuals where the actual director of this film, he said that he had seen these images in a book, and I believe in the documentary you get to see his neighbor put these all in a book and published it.
Yeah.
And that's how people found out about him, because
otherwise he was just kind of so mild-mannered.
David doesn't have social media.
Yeah.
He doesn't have like an internet presence, and that's what the director said was actually part of why he was okay with making this, because he was like, you look online and you can see people saying really cruel things about him.
You're gonna get trolled 6 ways to Sunday.
Yeah, and especially if you're somebody from an older generation that's not used to internet culture, that could be like a real shock to you. Although I kind of feel like David would just ignore the people that had negative things to say. He just kind of seems like that type that doesn't seem to care too much. He's not trying to convince people. He doesn't care. But what I thought was really interesting. I mean,
he's already lived 74 years. I mean, at that point, it's like, that like you kind of stop caring when people like are flippant for stupid reasons, or just saying like, "Oh, you old man," and it's like, whatever. I live my life. Go live yours.
Well, I mean, too, he's kind of had an experience where his relationship with his wife,
his family,
was kind of ruined. Well, he still seems to be, in the documentary anyways, with his son, he still seems to be very close to him. I know from another interview that his wife actually, he and his wife separated, but they've been living together for like 40 years, like in the same little row house in New Jersey. They just have separate bedrooms and they live more like roommates. She cares about him deeply, but she just couldn't be married to him. And I mean, a lot of that is, he still says that he has these experiences. He has sex with Crescent continually, like to this day.
Right.
And that's kind of something that, whether it's happening or not, do you want to compete with that?
Right.
Like, do you want to compete with another woman, whether it's,
whether it's real or imaginary, whether it's, like it's still, there's a lack of loyalty maybe. And also, like, that's something for every person has to make that choice of whether they want to, deal with that. And he does say towards the end of the film, spoilers, like, the filmmaker actually directly asks him, like, hey, if Crescent invited you to go off and live the rest of your life, off planet with them,
or wherever she
goes, would you go with her? And he goes, yeah, I think I would. And it's like, well,
yeah, he says he wouldn't really miss Earth. What I thought was interesting, he works part-time at a deli. How would you describe the guy that owns the deli?
The guy that owns the deli is just like typical
tough
like
Jersey guy,
New Jersey Italian dude.
Yeah,
like
tough guy, no nonsense. Kind of looks at you like he's suspicious, like you're about to do something, like that kind of look. And when he was asked, what do you think? Do you believe him? He's like, Yeah, I believe him. I was just like, oh, I did not expect that. Like this no nonsense kind of guy. I expected him to be like, no, I don't, but it's none of my business. Instead, he was like, nope, I believe him. It was just like, wow. Because he doesn't come across as somebody that wants you to believe him. He doesn't seem to care. He just comes across as somebody very earnest.
Yeah.
In fact, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, this has an 82%
Fresh
is the
factor.
average
Yeah.
rating. The audience score gives it a 90% liked it.
Yeah.
So that's good. And there's a lot of different comments on here. Let's see. Here's a man who experienced something terrible and strange and who has been using his art as a method of exploring his psyche. That's very human. Another person says, the results are both mesmerizing and provocative. Ultimately, this film doesn't tell us very much about extraterrestrials. Even if you are a believer, you will have heard similar stories before. But it has plenty to say about being human. So it's very interesting that you just kind of can't help but fall in love with the guy.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, sometimes there are documentaries where it's like, I'm filming a train wreck and I know it, and the train wreck is just like you're kind of taking part and enjoying the train wreck aspect of it when you watch someone destroy themselves. This is not that.
This is not like
this is the profile
reality TV where people are screaming at each other.
Right, this is the profile of actually a fairly well-adjusted human being. He's lived a life. He left his parents' rural farm in Georgia
yeah.
at like 19 because he wanted to be an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And his parents he describes as like, old school, traditional, like spare the rod, spoil the child. And he goes, yeah, right.
Yeah, he said he mentions specifically that he never hit his child.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because it gives you the impression that he was. In fact, he talks about getting beat when he talked
with a switch or
when
a
he
belt,
told his dad about the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And Crescent told him, "Don't tell them.
Don't talk about it anymore."
Yeah, she was like, "Don't tell your parents." One Rotten Tomato user says it would have been so easy for Brad Abrahams to treat his subject as a fanciful, delusional man, or worse, as a joke. But Love and Saucers remains laudably deferential to David Huggins. So
I agree.
I'd say that's a great way to put it. Do you want to play the trailer for this?
Yes, I do. Let's go ahead and play the trailer for it. The Orchard.
Why did these beings choose me? There is an orange yellowish light comes on. David is looking at the light. It doesn't hurt his eyes. He is aware of the beings. They are standing over him. They are touching his body. My name is David Huggins. I'm 72 years old, and I live in Hoboken, New Jersey. I was living a perfectly normal life until I started remembering things. It was just like image upon image upon image. It wouldn't stop. I was so scared. The eyes were just glowing. They hit the ground running straight toward me, and we floated up to some type of craft. I said, "You hurt me, you hurt me." No, 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 no. This is the woman I never told anyone about. When I was 17, I lost my virginity to a female extraterrestrial. That's all I can say about it.
Love and Saucers.
So it's very funny because that makes it, seem very dramatic, and it's not a dramatic movie at all. Don't go into it expecting that; you'll be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a very kind of chill,
it's a slice of life.
Yeah.
Like here's someone. It almost reminded me of like the documentaries that I really liked in the mid 2000s when they would protest or they would profile different niche game players, and what I mean is like there's a subculture of people that play Scrabble. And so what would happen was they would go to like the Scrabble national tournaments and they would profile like the top players.
Thank you.
And then they would profile the lives of the people that play Scrabble professionally. And at best they make like minimum wage money off of that. And then you just you get these slice of life of like these people who are like they're or I think they also had a few for There was also a documentary on people that do crosswords the same way, or pinball. The pinball one, I think, is called Tilt. But yeah, like you get this slice of life of these people who, like, I don't know, they have a passion for something, they've dedicated a talent, and it's just so very hyper specific that, like,
this is definitely specific.
Yeah. And so it's like you kind of drawn into like somebody whose mind is very different than your own.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we both really enjoyed the film, but did you believe him?
I believe he experienced something. I don't know that I don't know.
What do you think he experienced? Because what's interesting to me is we have some instances where people seem to have had experience. They experienced something in the past, and I can see that being written off as a traumatic experience that they have somehow are remembering in a different way that their brain is allowing them to cope with. But with somebody that is his age, that is in a safe place, that is still having these experiences,
who's in good physiological and
Yes.
otherwise mental health, like I would say, I would describe it as some type of schizophrenia, or like,
I remember you saying that when you were watching it, you're like, I wonder if he has undiagnosed schizophrenia.
Just because it's like, it's not all nightmares and psychosis.
I was gonna say though, I don't think I mean, in the trailer we just listened to, it makes it seem really dramatic, but there were very few experiences he had that were like scary or frightening.
Right.
He said at first it was kind of scary to see them, but we never really hear him like running or fighting to get away. And
right, he wouldn't fit under paranoid schizophrenia.
No,
it would just fit under
experience where he was hurt.
Yeah.
Was
like
quickly.
Yeah, he quickly subsided or abated because he basically what he says is, that moment where he's like, that hurts. He lets them know that hurt, and then they touched him and he didn't hurt anymore. It was like an instant anesthetic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that sounds dreamlike, something that can be fixed in.
Well, the interesting thing is when he was describing certain things, so he describes having been told he had babies with her and that one of the babies was sick.
Uh-huh.
And he gets very upset by this and he wants to see the baby. Well, he's never been able to just like call them or have them come to him. He doesn't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. It's usually in his bedroom at night.
They just open up a portal to his room.
They just appear.
Yeah.
Well, the thing was, he got so upset by this that he somehow made it on to where he says wherever she was.
Uh-huh.
The way he drew it or painted it in his painting was like a circle opened up and he came through it, which is one of those things where it makes you wonder. The talk of like extraterrestrials, are they from outer space or are they interdimensional beings actually? Like, what are they?
Or like when he went through the portal and he's finally like argues the hierarchy of aliens. Like,
yeah,
they're like, fine, you can see your hybrid baby, and then like she comes in the room with the baby and she's holding it by the hand the way a cat holds a kitten in its mouth.
She was holding it I think like around its stomach, but like dangling it.
Yeah,
and he's like, that's not how you hold a baby.
Right, and it's like what that strikes me is like maybe his parents, like, you have a dream of like, it's kind of transference and projecting, like,
I don't know.
Like his parents sucked at being parents, so he was just like, I'm out of here at first chance, right? And then so he has dreams about like, well, how could I be, like, how could I teach aliens how to be human parents?
About these,
what does it mean to be a human parent, right?
Didn't you also find it strange that
also they cloned the baby 1,000 times or something?
No, he just had that many.
Oh, okay.
It's like maybe she has like a litter of puppies, like a litter of babies.
Either that or every time they.
Or maybe they did clone it. You never really get to find out. But also, what's interesting is it shows Crescent and the women that look like her.
Right.
Then it shows these short grays that he said seem to be kind of like workers,
helpers or
something. Yeah. And then here's the weird thing is what's always watching him when he is having sexual relations with Crescent is a praying mantis looking bug type alien.
4 foot tall praying mantis in the corner of the room.
That just sits in the corner and watches.
An observer, yeah.
And on an interview, I heard someone ask him, like, well, was he into it? Like, was he watching you guys, like, enjoying it? And he said, no, a couple times it seemed sad. Like, it doesn't seem like he can... Stop trying to be a cricket.
Be a cricket, just rubbing his legs together.
He said it seems like he can't maybe have sex or something. Or, like, he seemed, like... sad, like it was something he was jealous of. I don't know. But what's interesting though is we don't see any men that are the same height or that look like the same type of alien as Crescent or the other women. So it's very interesting.
Also, there are no other men in the like. There's no other abducted humans, right?
No, but what I'm wondering is this like a Children of Men type situation, but instead of like women not being able to get pregnant, are there just no men?
Yeah.
Did the population of men die out on whatever planet they're from? And that's maybe why, like,
But that's
they don't know how to have babies.
but
They haven't had babies. They haven't raised babies because we don't know what their lifespan is.
Right.
So maybe she's 100 years old and she's never seen anybody interact with a baby, and she's coming in carrying it by its
or maybe
middle.
it's like a monarch butterfly where they only last for days, right? Like,
well, he's been seeing Crescent for years.
it could just be like a new version.
A new version.
Yeah, like,
I mean, they all look the same.
and then the other part of me is just like, okay, well, just imagine in your head, like, you're having, like, that kind of, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have a family, and then it's like, okay, well, it's during his single period where, you know, he did the baby thing.
I think he started having babies or he realized that he had a baby with her after he had a child.
Okay.
Because his child was young when this happened.
Right.
And that, I think, was part of what led to the divorce with his wife, was he started telling her because he was like, oh, now I have kids with this woman.
Yeah.
So he thought it would be a good time to open up, because this was when he was obsessing over the fact that he was a father to a bunch of babies that he didn't really get to interact with, and it seemed to be kind of torturing him.
Speaking of the torture, you and I both commented in terms of his paintings, some of them are a little Baroque, very medieval type portrayal of the human body. A lot of the points where he's either laying down or standing up or stretched out, there are instances where he looks exactly like, you know, medieval or you know, archaic portrayals of the Christ figure.
I wouldn't say necessarily the Christ
stretched
figure.
out on
That's
the
just
cross,
how during the Renaissance period they were painted.
Very lanky, ribcagey, and how, you know, just like
no, it was kind of like the sort of like protruding middle section that's almost like they did like the body and then added everything onto it. It's that very specific style. I'll see if I can find some images that it reminded me of, but we'll put those up. We'll definitely show you guys some of his artwork as well. It's very cool. Maybe some more tame stuff on the Facebook, and then we'll put some other stuff up on the Instagram, so you'll have to check both. You can hear Mr. Dante meowing. Shush. But
so I found this on Amazon for $3.99.
Yeah, to rent.
You can watch it on YouTube for $2.99. Definitely recommend.
100%. Definitely something you need to watch.
Go in your wallet, like.
When he started talking to his wife about this, it seemed like he had a happy family. He didn't have any reason to bring this up. This, eventually did ruin their marriage.
Right.
In a way, he's still with her.
Like, what a gamble, right?
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know if she sees other people or not. But from what I understand, they are just like friends, roommates.
It's platonic at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, they do care about each other, but.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, I don't think this was like, I may never have a family. I don't think this was any sort of weird longing. He had a family.
Right, yeah, and he has a son.
Almost threw it away. I think this is something that if you're going to do something like
part
that,
of that's
you
like
feel
the
very
courage of
strongly.
your convictions, and it's like, you'd be like coming out, right? Like, to your family.
But that's what I'm saying is he had to feel very strongly about this.
If you were to ask me, is it like from a scale of 1 to 10, 0 being I'm lying about what I'm saying, I don't believe it at all, I'm being insincere, to 100%, to a 10 being like 100%, I'm certain this happened, as sure as I am talking to you right now, I'm sure he would say 10.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why kind of like I'm saying, like, something happened. There's something going on in his mind, or I just don't know. It's so interesting.
It's very strange too, because it's like the type of person. If I told you that there's a movie about a man that sleeps with aliens, you might conjure up a certain image, and it's not a 74-year-old man from Georgia who just likes to paint and works part-time at a deli in New Jersey.
And is not attention-seeking in any other way.
People have social media.
People reach out to him, right?
Yeah. Like, never really, he didn't try to sell his paintings until after he realized people liked them and appreciated them, and then he was like, oh, sure, I guess I could sell some of these. Yeah. Why not? That's what strikes me as, like, the most sincere thing about him, is he just does not strike me as the type of person that would make this up just for attention.
Right, he's not attention-seeking.
He doesn't really, for a while, he didn't get anything out of it. It was detrimental. But now it's kind of turning around, and I think he was kind of, there's a moment where he's in, they have, a little gallery showing of his artwork, and people were polite, were intrigued, were asking him questions, and no one was making fun of him or anything. They were just like, oh wow, so who's this guy? What does he do? Tell me about him. and he was getting to kind of share his experience.
Mhm.
And he found that, very comforting, it seemed like. It seemed like he was just really, I think he thought people were potentially going to treat him badly.
Right, and then
He seemed like it.
and then he was like, they just had quiet ride back from the gallery to his house, and like, oh, how'd you do? How do you feel? And he's like, oh, I had a great time.
Yeah, he's like, that's not, I don't think he expected that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't strike me as the type that's doing this for.
Maybe he's Banksy.
He's Banksy. Why would he be that? I don't think so.
Because that's where he gets the attention-seeking part of him
I
out,
don't
is
think
anonymously.
so.
Yeah.
Anonymously, I think you're wrong about that. I don't know. I believe him. I don't know who Crescent is or where she's from, but I believe him.
Yeah, it's sweet.
You have this like disgusted look on your face. Yeah, it's sweet. Ew. Love. Gross.
Well, the part of it is bittersweet because he still, it's like, it gives you like, oh, he still lives with his ex-wife, and it's like, well, it's not like that. It's like, oh, he lives on a futon. Oh, it's not like that. He has a huge library of like media books and
Yes,
and like these VHS tapes and classic movies, and he's a 74-year-old just decent dude. Like he's not mean to anybody. He didn't want anything from anyone.
Grumpy kitty. He's like, I want out of this room, but as soon as we let him out, he's gonna scream and pound on the door. So you're stuck here, cat.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it did cost him his marriage, and then it did say like his son Michael, he has an okay relationship with. They interviewed him for the film, and the dude seems okay.
He does. He's like, it's weird.
But he moved
whatever.
to Thailand after he got married to a Thai woman. So
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, your son's now.
But it's kind of interesting.
halfway
he has
around
that
the world.
same kind of personality type that's like, would I go somewhere far away for a woman? Sure. Would I leave behind a different life?
Right.
That's kind of like
Is that
what,
hereditary?
Yeah, it's like what David said. He's like, would I leave and go where she is? Sure.
Missed opportunity.
What does his son do?
Right.
She's like, boop. He just pops off to Thailand.
Yeah.
No problem.
It's like hereditary. It's a missed opportunity that he maybe, I'd go with Crescent, and it's like, well, the son's like, well, I found a human age.
Struck me as like the saddest thing is he'll say that she cares about him and she seems to show that she cares. But at the same time,
Crescent can never love him back.
It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been periods of time where he hasn't really seen her.
Yeah.
And he even commented, now that he's older, she shows up less and less.
Yeah. What if? Yeah. It strikes me. The tragedy of it is if it's real. What if it's like Let the Right One In or Let Me In?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen either one of these? It's a vampire movie.
I don't think I have, which is surprising.
It's like a Swedish or Norwegian vampire movie. And
I feel like we watched.
There's an American remake. Basically, it's about a vampire who's like became a vampire at like a teenager. She's she's like a little girl, and she has this old man caretaker, and then the old man caretaker like kills himself, and she finds and befriends a little boy, and then he becomes the new like vampire caretaker. It's kind of like, well, she's never gonna age.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's kind of, he still paints Crescent the same way, but he also seems to still paint himself the same way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of sad because I don't know if you caught that. I think it might not have been in the movie. It might have been in the article I read. He says, oh, she visited me a few months ago. And I remember she had her arms around me, but that's all I remember. So it doesn't seem like maybe she doesn't sleep with him anymore. Maybe it was just, he was just kind of being used for a science experiment or to produce hybrid children or whatever it was. It doesn't seem like he's as useful. And maybe they only visit him out of like continuing the study or out of some sense of like, we can't be totally dicks to this guy we used. But it is kind of sad because it's like you do get the impression that maybe she cares about him, but not the way he cares about her. She wouldn't leave wherever she's from to be with him if that were possible. It doesn't seem like that. But I don't know. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Are you sad, Dante?
The movie, even though it's like an hour and 5 minutes, it fits all these different emotions in it at the same time because you're feeling multiple things. And at the end, you're kind of wistful. You're like, I'm glad I know about this guy.
Yeah, you're like, this guy's a cool guy.
But I wish I could make him a little bit happier than he is. Just a little bit.
What do you think, Dante?
Dante is busy rubbing his
Dante,
forehead
what do
against
you
stuff.
think? He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's just like, how cute do I have to be to get out of this room? Yeah? He wants you to keep petting him. You stopped, you're in trouble now.
Well, he's purring.
I don't
I'm
know.
allergic to you, asshole. I'm getting stuffy. And it's been nice here in Phoenix.
Well, overall, I think it's a really great movie, documentary, whatever. Give it a watch.
Give it a 7 out of 10.
Maybe not exactly a family-friendly documentary. It's not that. It's really not that bad. It's not that graphic, but you know.
But the thing is,
Choose your audience.
the paintings give a lot to the imagination, and they don't at the same time, right?
I mean,
basically,
yeah.
they're stills. It's like what photographs.
Yeah.
So your brain, you fill in the narrative and the, like, I would not watch this with your family. This is not a mom and dad movie.
I would definitely watch this with my mom.
Really?
It's my mom.
At
yes.
one point, Crescent's identical-looking females made me ejaculate into a bowl, and it wasn't
Yes.
it wasn't fun, but the experience was pleasurable. And you're like,
You're
well,
like, that's weird. But I'm not shaming the guy. I think he does believe this 100%.
yeah.
I believe him. I know that you're like, that's so crazy, but I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe she's interdimensional. Maybe she's extraterrestrial. I can't say she's not real. I've never seen her, but
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, for somebody that seems so sure of it, I feel like living in a New Jersey roadhouse like he does, I don't think that it's extraterrestrial because when you think about that, and when you think about, you know, a spacecraft or something coming up to a very busy area.
Georgia farmhouse,
nobody's
totally
seeing.
plausible.
Yeah, Georgia farmhouse, totally.
Out in the woods, yeah.
But, and that's the thing is it's like maybe all these experiences happened in Georgia and he's just remembering them when he falls asleep and thinking that they're still happening. And that could explain why he continues to draw himself. Like, he doesn't draw himself old, really, with her.
Yeah.
I mean, that could definitely be plausible, is that this is an experience that happened. Don't point to your head and make the crazy sign.
No, he's not. I didn't make a crazy sign. I'm just saying it's in his head.
But that's what I'm saying, is this could be an extraterrestrial experience that he has not had since he was 18 and left Georgia. This could be all of these things happened over the course.
What if the beginning part's true, but every encounter since is just kind of him
wishing, dreaming, hoping to go back to her? That could be. Or, you know, if he is still experiencing this and this is actually happening to him, they would have to be some sort of interdimensional beings. They would not be able to just hop in a spaceship. But he did have that weird experience with the woman in the car that drove him home.
Yes.
And he didn't say it was her, but they showed pictures kind of insinuating. So who knows, maybe they land their spaceship and take a car. They take a taxi to him or something, you know. But I think it's more likely that he had these experiences and now continues to think about them or remember them, or that these are some sort of interdimensional being. You just think it's all in his head. Our curmudgeon. Curmudgeoniest. What would you think if you had an experience like this? Would you immediately discount it as being in your head? Let's say you've been having them for as many years as he has.
Maybe.
You're not the type to go to a doctor. Your arm could be falling off and you'd be like, I don't want to go to the doctor.
You're
I'm fine.
right, yeah.
I don't know where my insurance card is. It's okay. I have super glue. So I don't see you being like, well, I'll just go to the doctor and tell him I have sex with aliens. Do you think you would just be like, well, I'm just crazy and that's all there is to it? Or do you think you'd be like, no, this is real?
I'd probably start on message boards and stuff like, hey, does anyone else have this experience? And then they'd be like, no. Or being the internet, they'd be like, yeah, me too. Like, and they'd be like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, yeah.
I don't know. Either way, I think this is a great thing to watch. I think it's really interesting. I think you need to have David Huggins in your life. You need to check him out. Tell us what you think. Do you believe him? Do you have a theory on who or what Crescent could be, or the other aliens? Like I said, you don't get a ton of information about them in this documentary, so I want to hear what you guys think, like what your theories are, if you've ever had any sort of extraterrestrial experience, whether it's, you know, as intense as David's, or, you know, even if it's just something like, I saw something weird in the sky, or I saw what looked like an alien in the forest, whatever, we want to hear about it.
Yeah.
you know where to find all that.
Let us know.
Let us know. But do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that, the whole thing about this experience with him is, he's 74 years old. He's kind of well adjusted, but you said there's, like we've both talked about, there's a tinge of melancholy to it.
There's like a longing.
This haunts him, right?
A little bit, yeah.
And so I just wanted to close out on this song a little bit, just the chorus of Love and Rockets.
Thanks for listening, guys. Keep the campfire burning. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, campers, thanks for listening. Got any scary stories? Send them to campfirecurmudgeon@gmail.com or message us on Facebook. You can even send a text or leave a voicemail at 480-442-0124. Don't forget to visit us on Instagram and tweet us at CFCurmudge.